Hi there, my name's Brad Cavallo and I'm one of the teachers of VCE Physical Education at Marist-Sion College. This video is for those students who are interested in undertaking Physical Education Units 1 and 2. So this video will cover a few things. Firstly, what topics are actually covered during learning Physical Education Units 1 and 2. What does the theory to practical ratio look like is often a question that students have coming into VCE PE. What are the types of assessment that the students will undertake through the year? And also, what contact information is required for those that do need a bit more information after viewing this video. So just in brief, Unit 1 covers all things about the human body, essentially. A lot of the kids going into Units 1 and 2 PE would have come from Year 9 and 10 fitness and training and advanced fitness and training, where they get a little bit of an introduction into learning about the human body and how it operates: muscles, bones, heart, lungs, etc. Unit 1 really takes this to a new level and looks at the musculoskeletal system, which is essentially the muscles and the bones, and how they work together to create human movement. It also looks at the cardiorespiratory systems, so the cardiovascular system, which is the heart and the blood, and the respiratory system as well, being the lungs, and how those two systems work together to also assist in performance, movement, removal of waste, and a few other things as well. We also cover some really interesting stuff about acute and chronic injuries and illnesses relating to all four of these human body systems. And also, one of the more popular topics that we cover in Unit 1 is legal and illegal methods of performance enhancement, where we look at what athletes can do to enhance their performance, both from a legal perspective, but also an illegal perspective as well. Unit 2 is a little bit different, and this is generally done at the start of the year as opposed to at the end. But this is because we look at physical activity from a bit more of a wider lens and take a bit of a step back and look at how physical activity and sport is related to the society we live in and people's health status, and how they can increase their level of physical activity and also decrease their level of being a sedentary human being. We look at the assessment of physical activity and how much physical activity we should be doing as per the guidelines, depending on what age we are. We also look at how we can create a physical activity plan for somebody who A, needs one, but B, depending on what situation they find themselves in. And the students really learn how to tailor a program based on somebody's needs. Lastly, in Unit 2, we look at the contemporary issues that are associated with physical activity and sport. So things like cultural diversity, gender equality, physical inactivity, as we age, just to name a few, but that is also a really interesting topic. So a question that students often have coming from Year 10 mainstream PE and or advanced fitness and training: how much prac do we actually do? Now, this isn't a very popular response to that question, but it is a heavily theory-based subject which students need to be aware of before coming into the subject. It is a VCE subject and they are tested on their knowledge when they put pen to paper. However, we still try to average 2 practical lessons per fortnight. So generally we try and aim for 1 per week. Prac usually relates to the theory component, so it's no longer just going out and playing games during prac class. It always relates back to what theory has been learnt earlier in the week. Sometimes we may not get time for a prac. Students need to be aware of that, but we endeavour to try and still incorporate that component, because at the end of the day, students do choose to do PE because generally they are fairly active and sporty and do learn best in that way. Some topics definitely have more practical components than others. For example, in Unit 1, when the students learn about those 4 major body systems that I spoke of earlier, we learn about how these systems interact whilst at rest versus during physical activity. One of the best ways to learn about this is to actually go out and do it ourselves, so that some topics do hold much more time in terms of how much prac we can include there. Just quickly run through the assessments. Obviously, being a VCE subject, there are multiple formal assessments that we need to distribute to the students that contributes to their overall grade for the semester. So, Unit 1, for example, Unit 1, AOS 1, and for those that aren't aware, AOS means area of study. So each unit has 2 areas of study that we try and break up term by term. So the students will, in Unit 1 area of study 1 and Unit 1 area of study 2, be able to be assessed on a series of structured questions that will form one assessment, and then a written report that responds to content that we learn in both of these area of studies. Being a VCE subject, at the end of the unit, we have to undertake an exam as well, and this is actually a greater percentage weighting than the other assessments, or SACs as we call them, earlier in the year. This is essentially getting the students really well prepared for Units 3 and 4, where the end of year exam is a much heavier weighting than their SACs earlier in the year. Unit 2 looks a little bit different in terms of assessment. We get the students to have a crack at a laboratory report and a case study analysis in Unit 2 AOS 1. And then in Unit 2 AOS 2, which is quite short, they present in a group about one of those contemporary issues that I mentioned earlier as well. There is again a Unit 2 exam at the end of the unit, which, as I mentioned before, is again a greater percentage weighting. This allows the students to, like I said, get prepared for Units 3 and 4, but also get used to the study habits associated with compiling all their knowledge from earlier in a semester and putting that to use a bit later on to see how their retention skills are and their study skills as well. So where to after Units 1 and 2? So generally this is obviously undertaken by Year 11 students. Sometimes we have Year 10 students who are doing advanced studies as well, which is absolutely fantastic if they are choosing to do that. The obvious pathway is to physical education Units 3 and 4. Having that base knowledge of Units 1 and 2 is super important to go into Units 3 and 4. That's not to say that students cannot undertake 3 and 4 without doing 1 and 2. There is just a bit more work involved, because often there is application of content learnt in Units 1 and 2 later on in Units 3 and 4. If you are requiring further information from anyone at the college in relation to PE Units 1 and 2, you can contact myself or Jack Augustin, who is the other VCE PE teacher, and our emails are there on the screen. Feel free to shoot us an email anytime or call the college and ask to speak to us. Thank you very much, and good luck in your subject selection for next year.